My name is Helen Thompson. I am 34 years old. I used to believe my life was something people envied, a quiet, steady kind of happiness that felt almost guaranteed. I was married to Lucas, the man everyone insisted was the dream husband, and honestly, they weren't wrong. Even Ashley, my best friend since college, never missed a chance to remind me how lucky I was. She'd tease me with a half smile, saying, "Men like Lucas don't come around often, Helen. You better hang on to him." Back then, it always sounded like a joke. Now, when I replay those moments, there's an undertone I should have noticed. Lucas was the sort of husband who never forgot birthdays or school events, the kind who came home after long, draining shifts at the IT company and still had enough energy to read Lily bedtime stories with all the character voices. Sometimes I'd stand at the hallway entrance and watch them, the soft lamplight warming their faces. Lily giggling as Lucas made the dragon sound too dramatic on purpose. It should have made me feel grateful, loved, grounded. Instead, somewhere along the line, it made me restless. I didn't realize it at first. It started small, quiet irritation at how predictable our days were, how routine our marriage had become. I told myself I was just tired, just stressed, just going through a phase. But the feeling grew, curling like smoke around everything good in my life. I felt trapped by the stability I should have appreciated. I started telling Ashley I felt like I was living the same day on loop. She'd look at me with that concerned, slightly disappointed expression she thought I didn't notice. "That's marriage," she said, once stirring her coffee, slowly eyes flicking up to mine. "It doesn't stay thrilling forever, but it becomes something real. Don't underestimate that." I nodded, but the truth was, her words bounced right off me. Maybe I didn't want them to stick. Then Dylan walked into my life, and everything, absolutely everything, shifted. He worked at the tiny cafe near my office. I used to go there during lunch because they had the best chai latte in the building. At first, Dylan was just the friendly barista who remembered my order, but he had this charisma, this loud, bright energy that pulled people in. Compared to Lucas's steady quiet, Dylan was noise, careless, confident, magnetic noise. The first time he really caught my attention, he was telling some ridiculous story to a group of customers about someone trying to pay with Monopoly money. I laughed, really laughed, and he leaned in slightly, flashing this crooked grin. "You've got a great laugh," he said so smoothly. It made my stomach tighten with something I hadn't felt in years. It was nothing I told myself, just harmless interaction. But harmless things have a way of growing when you feed them. Soon I was visiting the cafe every day, sometimes twice. Our conversations started innocent jokes, comments, little moments of shared humor. Then came the inside jokes, then the text, then the flirting. I kept telling myself I wasn't doing anything wrong, that it was all in good fun. But I was lying, and a part of me already knew it. I mentioned Dylan to Ashley once in passing, telling her some silly story he'd told me. She looked at me a second too long before saying, "He sounds like trouble." There was a strange edge to her voice, half teasing, half something else. Maybe worry, maybe judgment. I brushed it off. Things escalated faster than I expected. A lunch outside the cafe, then another. Then a moment when his hand brushed mine and I didn't pull away. After that, the line blurred so quickly I barely noticed it was gone. I made the first physical move. I can't justify it. I don't even try to anymore. The guilt came in waves, sharp, suffocating, always at the worst times. I'd watch Lucas folding laundry while humming some tune Lily liked, and I'd feel sick. But instead of stopping, I plunged deeper into the mess I was creating. I told myself I deserved excitement. I deserved to feel alive. I deserved more than predictability. The night everything fell apart, I told Lucas I had to work late. He didn't question it. He never questioned me. Trust was a language he spoke fluently. I went to Dylan's apartment, a cramped, messy studio that smelled like stale cologne and burnt coffee. It should have repulsed me, but at the time it felt like rebellion freedom. I stayed too long, forgot my work bag at home in my rush to leave. When I came back, the house was dark except for a lamp in the living room. Lucas sat on the couch, my work bag in his lap. My heart stopped. "Did you forget something?" he asked, his voice too calm. He poured the contents onto the floor. Among my pens and receipts was the fresh cafe receipt, time-stamped for hours, after I'd claimed to be at work. My throat closed. I scrambled for a lie, anything but nothing came out. Lucas didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He just asked quietly, "Who is he?" I couldn't answer. The silence between us was so loud I thought it might crack the windows. Finally, Lucas stood, eyes hollow. "I trust you," he said, almost whispering. Then he walked upstairs and left me standing alone in the dim light with the ruins of my lies scattered across the carpet. The days after were torture. Lucas didn't scream or slam doors. He just withdrew. He moved with a cold politeness that hurt worse than anger ever could. He still took care of Lily, still did everything he always had, but he barely looked at me. I didn't know how to handle that kind of emptiness. Then one night, after Lily was asleep, he sat across from me, hands clasped, gaze steady, in a way that made my stomach twist. I think we should separate. I didn't fight it. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I nodded like I'd been waiting for those words, pretending I was relieved, pretending I finally had the freedom I'd wanted. We filed for divorce weeks later. Lucas fought for shared custody, but I pushed for full custody. I convinced myself and the court that I was the primary caregiver. Lucas didn't argue. He only said, if that's what's best for Lily, I'll respect it. I mistook that for indifference back then. After the papers were signed, Dylan moved in. I thought life would finally feel exciting, that I'd made the right choice, that the world was finally opening up for me. But as I stood there in that cramped little kitchen, watching Dylan laugh at something on his phone, while Lily sat quietly at the table, I felt a strange coldness settle in my chest, a whisper that I had no idea what I was walking into. I had no idea how quickly my world would collapse. When Dylan first moved in, I clung desperately to the idea that I'd made the right choice. I told myself the chaos was temporary, that I just needed time to adjust to a different kind of life. But even in those early days, I noticed the cracks, little things I pretended not to see. Dishes left on the counter, clothes tossed on the floor, a job shift he forgot to attend. It was nothing like the warm, steady rhythm Lucas had built for us. Still, I convinced myself that excitement came with messiness, that unpredictability was what I'd been craving. The truth was, I didn't want to face the shame of admitting I'd ruined my life for nothing. At first, Dylan tried to play the role of the fun adult. He'd tell silly jokes during dinner, bring Lily tiny gifts from the dollar store, or teach her card tricks he barely knew himself. Lily giggled politely, but I could see the confusion in her eyes. He wasn't her father, and something about him unsettled her. Kids feel what adults pretend to ignore. Then came the missed bills. It started subtly. A late electricity notice shoved behind a stack of takeout menus. A reminder email from daycare I swore I'd already paid. I worked full-time, and between groceries, rent, and Lily's needs, my money was already stretched thin. Dylan insisted he'd cover things once he got on his feet. But weeks passed, then months, and every job he took ended with some excuse. The boss was a jerk. The hours sucked. They didn't appreciate me. Each time he'd come home with that careless shrug that made my stomach churn. One night, after covering yet another one of his bills, I asked him if he planned on sticking with his latest job. He didn't even look up from the game controller. Relax, Helen. I'll figure it out. Not everyone wants to be a corporate robot like Lucas. The way he said Lucas's name, mocking dismissive, made something cold sink in my gut. Lily started asking questions too. Why doesn't Dylan go to work? Why is he always tired? I never had a good answer. I'd mumble something about adult responsibilities being complicated, but even I didn't believe it. The breaking point came when Dylan borrowed money for his car payment. He swore he'd pay me back with his next paycheck. But that paycheck never came because he quit the job 3 days later. Instead of fixing his car issue, he bought a new gaming console to blow off steam. I confronted him while he was setting it up. You said you'd pay me back, I snapped. He didn't even pause. I will. Chill. Chill. We're behind on rent. He just smirked. You're being dramatic. It was infuriating. Lucas would never have put us in that kind of situation. The comparison stabbed at me every time Dylan opened his mouth. The bills piled higher. Then came the calls, unknown numbers, voicemails demanding payment. I learned to dread the buzzing of my phone. Dylan didn't. He'd shrug and say, just tell them you'll pay later. As if life were some casual inconvenience he could ignore until it disappeared. But things didn't disappear. They escalated. One evening, Dylan came home jittery, his knee bouncing, his eyes darting, like he was expecting someone to leap out of the shadows. When I asked what was wrong, he waved me off, but later that night he admitted he'd borrowed money from people who weren't exactly safe. I'll handle it, he insisted. He didn't handle it. 3 days later, someone banged on our door, so hard the frame rattled. Lily ran to her room, terrified. I froze in the hallway as shadowy figures yelled Dylan's name, demanding he come out. Dylan wasn't even home. I stood there shaking until they left. I told Dylan what happened. He rolled his eyes. They're bluffing. Bluffing, right. After that, I kept the curtains closed and triple-checked the locks. Every knock made my heart feel like it was beating through my ribs. I barely slept. Lily woke up crying from nightmares she couldn't explain. Then Dylan made everything worse. One night, after a screaming match about money, he pulled out a tiny bag of pills. "You need to relax," he said, tossing one into his mouth. "Take one. You're unbearable when you're tense." I should have said no. I should have told him to get out to take his mess and leave. But I was exhausted. I was drowning. And for the first time, I wanted to feel nothing at all. So I took it. And one pill turned into two, then three. Soon it felt easier to stay numb than face the avalanche of consequences waiting outside my bedroom door. Lily noticed, of course. Kids always notice. She stopped asking me to help with homework, stopped asking to sit beside me on the couch, stopped hugging me goodnight. She watched me the way someone watches a stranger. One night she asked quietly, "Mommy, what's wrong with you?" The shame nearly crushed me. I wanted to stop. I really did. But stopping meant facing the wreckage of my choices, and I wasn't strong enough. Every attempt to quit ended with panic shaking hands and me begging myself for one more dose of peace. In desperation, I called Ashley. She answered, but her voice was distant cooler than I remembered. I told her everything. The mess with Dylan, the debt collectors, the pills, the fear, the guilt, the fact that Lily was starting to pull away from me. "I'm drowning, Ash," I whispered, tears choking my words. "I don't know what to do." There was a long pause. Then she spoke with a voice I barely recognized, steady, serious, controlled. "Helen, you need real help. Not venting. Rehab therapy, something." "I don't have time for that," I insisted. "Things will calm down. I just need—" "Helen," she cut in sharply. "This isn't about you anymore. This is about Lily." My stomach twisted. "I can't keep this secret," she continued. "I have to tell Lucas." Panic slammed into me. "What? No, Ashley, please. Please don't. I can fix this. I just need time. You can't tell him he'll take Lily away from me." Her voice cracked, but not with sympathy. "It's not about you," she repeated. "It's about protecting Lily. I'm sorry." I screamed. I begged. I cursed. I said things I wish I could take back. But Ashley didn't budge. When the call ended, I sat on the floor, shaking my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I knew Ashley wouldn't lie. She wouldn't sugarcoat anything. She'd tell Lucas everything. And Lucas wouldn't let it slide. For 2 days, I lived in silent, suffocating dread, checking my phone every hour, jumping at every sound outside, imagining what Lucas would do when he found out. And then one morning, someone knocked on the door, not pounding like the debt collectors. A firm, controlled knock. When I opened it and saw Lucas standing there calm and silent, the world seemed to tilt. This was it. Everything was about to fall apart. Lucas didn't say a word at first. He just stood there in the doorway, his expression tight and unreadable. There was no anger, no shouting. Just a heavy, cold disappointment that hit me harder than any scream ever could. It felt like the air around him had shifted, calmer, colder, stripped of the warmth I'd taken for granted for so many years. He stepped past me without waiting for permission. His eyes swept across the living room, lingering on the dirty dishes, the piled laundry, the unopened envelopes on the counter. It was like watching someone walk through the ruins of a home they used to love. I opened my mouth to explain, to make excuses, but nothing came out. My voice evaporated. "Where's Lily?" he finally asked. In her room," I stammered. He didn't look at me. He just walked down the hall, his footsteps soft but terrifyingly purposeful. I stood frozen, my hands trembling as if I were bracing for an earthquake. A few minutes later, he returned with Lily holding a small backpack, the straps barely hanging on her tiny shoulders. Her eyes were wide, confused, afraid. She looked at me like she knew something was wrong, deeply wrong, but didn't know what. "Mom," she whispered. I knelt in front of her, trying to hide the shaking in my voice. "Sweetheart, everything is fine, okay? Daddy's just—" "Helen," Lucas said, his tone slicing clean through my lie. I looked up at him. "She's coming with me." "No," my voice cracked. "Lucas, please. We need to talk about this. I can fix things. Just give me—" "You've had chances." His voice wasn't loud, but it was final. "I'm not leaving her here." "She's my daughter," I cried, trying to step between them. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He simply looked at me. Really looked at me with a mixture of heartbreak and disbelief. "I don't know who you are anymore," he said quietly, "but I'm not letting Lily stay in this environment. Not one more night." "Lucas, please." He shook his head once, not in anger, in resignation. It hurt so much more. He walked out with Lily holding his hand tightly. She glanced back at me through tears, and the image burned itself into something dark and jagged inside my chest. The door closed. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. I collapsed on the floor, hands clutching uselessly at the air where Lily had been standing seconds earlier. A sound tore from my throat, something between a sob and a scream. I don't even know how long I stayed like that. I tried calling Lucas, no answer. I tried texting him, no reply. I emailed him begging, promising I would get help, promising I would change, promising anything. Nothing. It was like I no longer existed. Days blurred together. I stopped sleeping. I stopped eating. I sat in the silent house, staring at Lily's empty chair, her abandoned crayon box, the little socks she'd dropped behind the couch that I couldn't bear to pick up. Every reminder was a knife turning deeper. A week later, I finally dragged myself to therapy, the same suggestion Ashley had made before everything blew up. I should have listened then, but it felt like trying to glue a shattered vase back together after stomping on it. My therapist said healing would take time, that I needed to rebuild myself before I could rebuild my life. But time was the one thing I didn't have. I needed Lily. I needed to see her, to hear her voice, to know she didn't hate me. I felt like I was suffocating without her. I didn't want healing. I wanted my daughter back. After a month of silence, I broke and called Ashley. She answered on the third ring. Her voice was tight, guarded. "What do you want, Helen?" "I'm trying," I said immediately, desperate. "I'm clean now. I'm going to therapy. I'm doing everything I can. Please." "Have you heard anything from Lucas?" "Anything about Lily?" Another pause, one that stretched too long. "Helen, we need to talk, in person." My stomach twisted, but I agreed. When I got to her apartment, she opened the door slowly. Her smile was small, strained. She let me in, and for a moment I almost felt normal again, like we were back in college having late-night talks about annoying bosses or bad dates. But that illusion vanished quickly. I poured my heart out about therapy, about how empty the house felt, about how much I missed Lily. Ashley listened quietly, her jaw tight, her eyes flicking away every few seconds like she couldn't stand to look at me too long. When I finally finished, she exhaled sharply. "Helen, there's something you need to know." My chest tightened. "Lucas and I—" She paused, searching my face. "We're together now." The world tilted. What my voice was barely a whisper. "We're dating." She winced, but didn't look away. "It just happened." "No." I shook my head, backing away from her. "No. Ashley, how could you? You of all people." She didn't flinch. If anything, her posture straightened. "You destroyed your marriage," she said quietly but firmly. "You made choices, terrible choices. Lucas needed someone to lean on. Lily needed stability. I was there." "You were my friend," I choked out. "I tried to help you." She snapped the mask, finally cracking. "I begged you to get help. I told you to stop. But you didn't. I'm not going to apologize for being there for Lucas and Lily when you weren't." My legs felt numb. "This wasn't supposed to be your life," I whispered. "It wasn't supposed to be you stepping into my home." She looked at me with something almost pitying. "This isn't about taking your place. You left it empty." I left her apartment feeling hollow, like someone had scooped out my insides and replaced them with ice. I didn't even cry at first. I just drove, mind blank, heart numb. But when I got home and saw Dylan sprawled on the couch, surrounded by trash, smirking like he owned the place, something in me snapped. "This is all your fault," I shouted, slamming the door. "You've dragged me down from the moment I met you." He stared at me, then slowly smirked. "Oh, please. Your life was a dumpster fire before I even showed up. Don't put that on me." "You're a leech, Dylan," I screamed. "A useless—" "Careful," he interrupted, standing up. "You're the one who cheated. You're the one who ruined your marriage. I didn't make you do anything." I froze, because as much as I hated him, some part of me knew he wasn't entirely wrong. "Get out," I whispered. "No," he said calmly, smugly. "You need to leave. I'm tired of your drama." Before I could react, he grabbed my bag, shoved a few of my things inside, and tossed it at me. "Bye, Helen." His smirk was the last thing I saw before I stepped outside and the door slammed behind me. I drove around aimlessly until the sky turned dark. I couldn't go to Lucas. I couldn't go back to Ashley. I didn't want to be alone, but I didn't deserve anyone. In desperation, I called an old friend I hadn't spoken to in years. She let me crash on her couch out of pity. Now I'm here in someone else's home, living out of a bag, feeling like a ghost in my own life. This morning, I finally emailed Lucas, begging for a chance to see Lily. I didn't mention Ashley. I couldn't. I didn't have the strength. Hours later, his reply came. "Lily is doing well. She's adjusting. Right now, you need to focus on yourself and getting better. We'll talk about visitation when the time is right." No warmth, no anger, no hope. Just cold finality. I read the email again and again until the words blurred, and all I could think was, I lost my husband, I lost my daughter, I lost my best friend. And the worst part, I'm the one who threw it all away. Living on my friend's couch didn't feel like surviving. It felt like floating in the wreckage of a life I'd burned down with my own hands. Every morning I'd wake to the hum of someone else's refrigerator, someone else's ceiling, someone else's home. It drove the point deeper. Nothing in my life belonged to me anymore. Not my house, not my daughter, not even my sense of self. My friend Melissa tried to be kind. She offered coffee in the mornings, asked gently if I'd eaten if I needed anything. But I could feel her discomfort, the way she avoided looking directly at me when I spiraled into quiet tears, the way she hesitated before leaving me alone in her apartment. I didn't blame her. I wouldn't want me here either. Therapy became the only place where my life made a kind of painful sense. My therapist, Dr. Rivera, was calm, steady, and impossibly patient. She didn't look at me with judgment, not even when I confessed the worst parts of my story. The affair, the lies, the drugs, the neglect. My own voice trembled as I said the words out loud, as if naming my sins solidified them into something I could no longer outrun. You can't rebuild quickly. Dr. Rivera reminded me during one session, you tried to reinvent your life overnight with Dylan, and it led to destruction. This time has to be different. How do I fix myself fast enough to get Lily back? I asked quietly. She paused. This isn't about speed, it's about sincerity. But sincerity meant such a long road, a lonely one. And every step I took felt like walking barefoot on broken glass. Still, I tried. I had to. A week after Lucas's brief email, I gathered enough courage to write him again. My hands shook the entire time. Lucas, I'm doing better. I'm clean. I'm going to therapy. I want to see her, please. Just tell me how she's doing. Tell her I love her. I deleted the line about Ashley before sending it. Mentioning her would make everything worse. Lucas responded the next day. Helen, I'm glad you're getting help. Lily is fine. She's adjusting. She's happy. We can discuss visitation after more progress on your end. Take care of yourself. There was nothing personal, no warmth, no cracks in his armor. He was protecting himself and Lily from me, from the person I'd become. And the painful truth he was right to. The hardest part was imagining Lily's new life. I pictured her in Lucas's kitchen, sitting at the counter with a glass of milk while he packed her lunch for school. I pictured them reading bedtime stories, but with Ashley's voice stepping in when Lucas got tired. I pictured them taking Lily to the park together, Lucas pushing her on the swings while Ashley stood nearby with a camera capturing the moment. Did Lily laugh with her? Did she cling to Ashley's hand the way she used to cling to mine? Did she ask about me at all? Every time the thoughts came, they sliced me open, but I deserved the pain. One afternoon at therapy, I broke down entirely. I feel like she's replacing me, I cried. Ashley, she's taking everything. Dr. Rivera's voice was soft but firm. Ashley didn't take your place, Helen. You left it empty. She just stepped into the void. The words were harsh. They were also true. I had handed over my life the moment I looked at Dylan and decided he offered something better. God, how could I have been so blind? One night, after Melissa went to bed, I sat alone on her couch, staring at my phone. Lucas hadn't blocked me, but he wasn't engaging either. Ashley hadn't reached out, not that I expected her to. And Dylan was gone. Probably moved on to his next victim. The house felt too quiet, too clean, too stable. It reminded me of what my life used to be before I set fire to it. I opened my email again, rereading Lucas's message for what felt like the 100th time. He said Lily was happy. That word hurt the most. Happy. Happy without me. Happy with him. Happy with Ashley. I pressed my thumb to the screen, hovering over the keyboard, wanting so badly to ask if Lily talked about me, if she missed me, if she still wanted me. But I knew what that question truly was selfish. I wanted comfort, not truth. Instead, I typed a different message, one that took everything in me to write. Thank you for taking care of her. I'm trying, Lucas. I really am. I didn't send it. I deleted it instead. He didn't owe me anything, not reassurance, not forgiveness, not comfort. He owed all of that to Lily. Weeks passed slowly but steadily. I attended therapy twice a week. I journaled. I took long walks to clear the fog in my mind. Sometimes I'd cry in the middle of the sidewalk for no reason at all. Sometimes I'd feel nothing like my emotions had shut off to protect whatever was left of me. Melissa began commenting on how I looked a bit brighter or more grounded. I didn't feel that way, but I didn't correct her. The truth was messy. Some days I believed I was becoming someone Lily might be proud of. Others I felt like I was just pretending to be okay, while the real me curled up in a dark corner somewhere, whispering that this would never be enough. Then one afternoon, something unexpected happened. I received a message, a short one. A cold one. A message that changed everything. It wasn't from Lucas. It wasn't from Ashley. And it wasn't from Dylan. It was from a name I hadn't seen in a very, very long time. A name connected to the darkest part of this entire mess. We need to talk. It's about Lily. The message sat on my phone like a live wire. We need to talk. It's about Lily. Signed by someone I hadn't heard from since everything fell apart. Dylan. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. All the progress I'd made, the therapy, the stability, the fragile hope I'd been building, it cracked like thin ice beneath my feet. Why would he reach out about Lily? What could he possibly know? I didn't want to respond. Every instinct screamed to delete the message, block his number, erase every trace of him from my life. But fear has a way of overriding common sense, and the fear of something being wrong with my daughter was enough to paralyze me. With trembling fingers, I typed, "What about Lily?" His reply came instantly, like he'd been waiting. "Meet me. Tonight. The old cafe parking lot, 9 p.m. My heart thudded violently. Dylan never moved without wanting something. Nothing about him ever came without strings or consequences. But therapy had taught me this ignoring fear doesn't make it disappear. Sometimes facing it is the only way through. So I went. The parking lot was nearly empty when I arrived. Just a flickering lamppost, a few scattered cars, and a cold breeze sweeping across cracked asphalt. I stayed in my car, at first engine running, hands gripping the steering wheel. Then a shadow stepped out from behind the cafe dumpsters. Dylan. He looked different, rougher, thinner. Dark circles hollowed his eyes, and his hands twitched like he couldn't keep them still. Shame washed over me when I realized it wasn't just him who had fallen apart. I had followed him into the abyss and barely climbed out. He approached my car, and I cracked the window just an inch. "What do you want?" I asked. He huffed a humorless laugh. "Nice to see you too." "Dylan," I snapped, voice shaking. "You said this was about Lily." His smirk faltered. For a rare second, he looked serious, haunted even. "I messed up," he muttered, more than usual. I didn't respond, I just waited. He glanced over his shoulder, as if expecting someone to appear out of the shadows. Then he leaned closer to my window. "You know the people I borrowed money from," he whispered. "The ones who came to your house." My breath hitched. "What about them?" "They found out where Lucas lives." A cold spear of terror sliced through me. "No," I whispered. "No. Dylan, tell me you're lying." He shook his head. "They still think I'm with you. They think you have money. They think—" He swallowed hard. "They think your kid could be leverage." Everything inside me froze. Leverage, my daughter, my Lily. Suddenly, the parking lot felt too quiet, too exposed, too dangerous. "What did you do?" I demanded, my voice cracking under the weight of panic. "I tried to walk away," he said, voice trembling. "But they don't let people walk away." I heard them talking. "They mentioned Lucas's street. They know you lost custody. They think you're desperate enough to pay." The world tilted violently beneath me. This was my fault. All of it. Even the dangers I thought I'd escaped were still chasing me, still reaching for the one thing I had left to protect. I yanked my phone out of my bag, fingers fumbling. I had to call Lucas. I had to warn him. I had to. Dylan reached in through the cracked window and grabbed my wrist. "Don't," he hissed. "If you call him, they'll know it came from me. They'll kill me." For a split second, I saw true fear in his eyes. Not manipulation, not arrogance. Fear, but fear for himself. And in that moment, something inside me snapped into crystal clarity. This was the man I threw my life away for. This was who I chose over Lucas. This was who I brought into my daughter's world. Never again. I jerked my hand free and threw open the car door, nearly knocking him backward. "Helen," he shouted. But I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I didn't care about Dylan's life or death panic. The only thing that mattered was Lily. I sped out of the parking lot, tires screeching against pavement. My hands shook violently as I dialed Lucas's number. He didn't answer, so I tried again, and again, and again. Finally, on the fourth call, he picked up. "Helen." His voice was wary. "What's wrong?" "Lucas," I gasped. "You need to listen to me. You and Lily aren't safe. Those people, Dylan's people, they know where you live. They think they can get money out of me. By. My words dissolved into ragged sobs. "By using Lily." Lucas went silent for one terrifying second. Then his voice hardened, calm and razor sharp. "Where are you?" "I'm coming," I choked. "I'm on my way." "Helen," he said firmly, "drive to the police station. Now. Meet me there." "I can't. What if they—" "Helen," he snapped, his voice sharper than I'd heard in years, "go to the police. Now." Something fierce and protective surged inside me. The old Helen, the broken one, the reckless one, the selfish one, she evaporated. And in her place stood the mother I was supposed to be. "I'm going," I whispered. The next few hours blurred together, police questioning reports, filed patrol cars sent to Lucas's street. I sat in the station lobby, shaking so hard my teeth hurt. I didn't stop praying, not to be forgiven, not to be redeemed, but for one thing alone. Please keep Lily safe. When Lucas finally arrived with Lily sleeping in his arms, I broke. I sobbed ugly, uncontrollable sobs that shook my whole body. He didn't let me hold her. He didn't let me get close. But he let me look. And that was enough to keep me breathing. Is she okay? I whispered. She's safe, he said quietly. His eyes softened for the first time in months. Not with affection, not with reconciliation, but with acknowledgement. You did the right thing tonight, he said. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. The police handled the rest. Dylan disappeared. Maybe he ran. Maybe the people he owed caught up to him. I didn't ask for details. I didn't want them. What mattered was Lily was safe. Lucas was safe, and I had finally stepped up when it counted. That night, Lucas walked me to the station doors. Helen, he said, voice low, I don't know what happens next, but I saw something tonight. I saw the mother Lily needs you to be. My throat tightened. I'm trying, I whispered. I really am. I know, he said. And maybe someday, when you've rebuilt more of your life, we can talk about real visitation. My breath hitched. Thank you. He nodded once, then turned and carried Lily out into the cool night air. I watched them go, my past, my mistakes, my hopes slowly disappearing into the darkness, and instead of collapsing, I inhaled deeply. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was drowning. For the first time, I felt like I might deserve a second chance. Not with Lucas, not with Ashley, not with the life I destroyed, but with myself, and someday with Lily. I wasn't the woman who burned her life down anymore. I was the woman picking up the ashes and learning how to build something better, something real, something worthy.